Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about the open science support at the University of Vienna. Um, as Matteo already mentioned, my name is Teresa Kalova. I am the Data Stewardship Coordinator at the University of Vienna at the Vienna University Library. And as with many research institutions around Europe, open science support at our university has developed from focusing on open access to publications towards focusing on research data management, which is quite the priority in supporting open science activities at Austrian research institutions. And a huge step forward for open science in Austria was the adoption of the open science policy in Austria, which happened in February 2022, so last year. And in this policy, Austria committed both to open science as a movement, as a concept, but also to supporting the European Open Science Cloud, or the EOSC. So let's have a look at where we are right now with open science in Austria. So quite similarly to the situation in the Czech Republic and many other countries, I just spoke to colleagues in Slovenia 2 weeks ago. That's exactly what they're doing as well. The major drivers for open science have been third-party funded projects, both from the European Commission, but also from the national funders, mostly the research ministry in Austria. And currently, when you look at this image at the blue-green picture, we have 15 active digitization projects that are funded by our research ministry. And they are all focusing on some of the pillars of open science, if not open science as a whole. So this has been quite important in driving innovation in open science support at our institutions. Austrian universities are also currently involved in 7 EU projects that deal with open science, FAIR, or the EOSC, such as the Skills for EOSC project. And our activities within the national context in Austria are very community-driven. I know that that's also something that you have been focusing on in the Czech Republic, especially with the newly established data steward community. And currently there are 16 networks and consortia that deal with open science as a whole, or the various pillars of open science, such as citizen science and open education. We have quite active networks focusing on these 2 pillars of open science. And as I mentioned, the trend is pretty clearly going from focusing on open access to publications. So we have 19 institutions that have adopted a policy for open access to publications, as well as 28 institutional publication servers, so repositories for open access publications. But also through the move by one of our national funders to adopt an open data policy, we have been consecutively branching out towards more research data management support. So 9 universities have adopted a policy for research data management, including the University of Vienna. And we also have 11 institutional data repositories currently. There's also another form of support infrastructure in terms of data management, and these are 7 domain-specific data archives, such as AUSTA, which is the data archive for social sciences. So the open science support at the University of Vienna, which is supposed to be the main topic of my talk today, is largely focused or circled around the services offered by the University Library. So something that's quite similar to many institutions in the Czech Republic. And the University Library offers a lot of support in terms of helping researchers with their publication strategies and also with handling their data properly, and generally just doing responsible research, if you will. So pretty much you can sum up all of these services as ways to foster open science. And again, the main focus for the past 15, 20 years have been creating services around open access to publications. So we have an open access office within the library, and we also have a policy for open access to publications, which we adopted in 2014. But the area that I work in and that has been the main priority for the university in the past years is research data management and providing support for research data management, or RDM. So we adopted a policy for research data management in 2021, and we also have 2 repositories for research data, as well as our newly established data stewardship program. So the way RDM is currently organized is through a university-wide working group, which is tasked with both the strategic management and development of our activities in this area. And this working group is coordinated by the university library. And it was founded in 2020 by the Vice Rector for Digitization and Knowledge Transfer. And the Vice Rector is also an active member of this working group, which, if you have the option to get somebody from this high-level leadership to really get involved in your open science activities, that's of course a huge that can be a huge help in actually, making sure that the university invests in this area and that they even just know what's going on, really. But our research data management services are very much a joint effort of many different units throughout the university. So we have the library, the computer center, our research support. We also have the Center for Teaching and Learning when it comes to connecting to open education activities. And currently we have several selected faculties and research centers that are involved through our data stewardship program. And most recently, as of September this year, we also have a legal help desk for research data management through the Department of Innovation and Digitalization in Law. So I mentioned that we have been offering support for RDM for many years, around 15 years now. But until recently, these were quite generic in nature, as opposed to domain specific. And that was obviously because we had a very small team of people for this very large university. The university has around 7,500 researchers and almost 90,000 students. So it's really like a large-scale university where you need a lot of people with expertise from the various domains in order to be able to really help them effectively in managing their data. So pretty early on, we realized that there was quite a gap in our services in terms of domain-specific support. And we have been trying to close this gap and solve this issue by creating our data stewardship program. So I'm now going to briefly go over how we went about developing this data stewardship program, what it means to us, and also how that development came about within the Austrian context. So I was part of a large, again, national funded project called Fair Data Austria for the past 3 years. And a major goal in this project was to bring data stewardship from other countries, obviously mostly the Netherlands, Scandinavia, and bring it to Austrian research institutions. So the first thing we asked ourselves was, what are the main task areas? What are the typical responsibilities of data stewards? And for that, we both analyzed job listings for data stewardship roles, and we also interviewed data stewards from Austria and from other countries. And we came up with these 5 major areas of tasks. First one, pretty obviously, being providing advice and support to researchers. So that could be helping them create a data management plan, but that could also be supporting them in designing a more sustainable data pipeline or a data management workflow. Data stewards typically conduct needs assessments and requirements engineering in order to inform the further development of their support and their services. And this is really more of a function than a task, but data stewards are usually bridging the gap between researchers and support staff. So I'm not sure if that's something that you're familiar with or that's the case for your institutions, but for our university it was definitely the case that we were offering these services and we ran these repositories for many, many years. And we always came across researchers who have just never heard of it. So we really needed somebody who would be, geographically, but also through their academic training closer to the researchers so that they could connect them to this infrastructure that's already there and that's been available to them for the past 15 years. So data stewards also typically design and deliver training, and they are usually very engaged and involved in various national and international networks and initiatives. So the next step was to ask ourselves, okay, we have these task areas. What are the competencies that data stewards need in order to be successful in taking over these tasks? And for that, we identified these 4 major areas of competencies, starting with the professional competence, where there are no surprises there. Of course, you need skills in research data management. You need some basic legal knowledge. You need to know about data management plans, for example. And then moving to the methodological competence, here we have this translating ability, so the bridging function, the ability to translate the needs of researchers to the infrastructure providers and vice versa. And when you have a look at the area of personal competence, it's quite a long list. And it can be very helpful to data stewards to be curious, to be creative, and coming up with new solutions. But the thing that most current data stewards always pick up on whenever I show this graphic is patience. Data stewards are really agents of change, and they are guiding a cultural shift towards more responsible research practices. So being patient can be very beneficial for that particular task. But perhaps the most important competence for data stewards is from this area of social competencies, being communication. So when we look back at this slide of the major task areas of data stewards, it can be very helpful when data stewards are master communicators, really, because you need that skill for each one of these 5 task areas. And another thing that we looked at within this Fair Data Austria project were possible organizational models, so ways universities and other research institutions could implement data stewardship on the organizational level. And of course, for that, we looked to, again, the best practices from other countries, mostly the Netherlands. And we came up with 3 fairly simple, straightforward models that research institutions in Austria can implement when they are looking to hire or assign data stewards. First one being the data steward contact point. So and this is the model that will be most accessible to most institutions, because typically you would just add the task of data stewardship to somebody's existing role. So that's something that I used to do at another small university of applied sciences in Austria, where being a data steward made up maybe 10 or 20% of my job. And having a data steward contact point means that you are able to offer some support to researchers on kind of the generic level, and you cannot really go all that domain specific unless you are maybe working for a very small, very focused research institute. So moving from that really basic service level model towards the second one, which is a bit more advanced, that would be the data steward office. I know that there are several institutions in the Czech Republic that have founded open science centers or something that kind of aligns with this data steward office idea, where you would have several people, a team of people working together, providing this research data management support to students and researchers. and you might be able to be a bit more active in your service provision, as in you could do a lot more training, for example, and maybe you can already start implementing some domain-specific use cases, depending on the expertise you have within your team. And the most advanced model, the data steward network, is the one that is most often connected to the term data steward. That's something that we all know from TU Delft, for example. And within the data steward network, you would usually have somebody on the central level. So typically within the library, a data stewardship coordinator, and then you would have data stewards who are embedded on the level of the individual faculties or maybe departments or even individual research projects. And in this model, you can, of course, provide a lot of domain-specific support. So as we move through these models, as I mentioned, we kind of move from being able to offer more generic support and having more of an advisory role towards being increasingly embedded and operational. But something I wanted to mention that's not something that was included in this Fair Data Austria project, but something that's really interesting to me and something that's been cropping up quite a lot over the past years are more community-based data stewardship approaches. So these are typically a bit more bottom-up versus top-down. Typically, you would still need a decision made by the senior leadership within your institution in order to implement such an approach. But the idea is that you take people that are already working within your institution, usually at the individual research departments, and you ask each department to name somebody to assign the role of a data steward within their department to somebody who's already there. This could be a PhD student, it could be a postdoc, it could be somebody from IT support, for example. So what happens is that if you choose a similar approach, you suddenly have tens or even hundreds of data stewards within your institution. And these data stewards typically work on the departmental level or even on the level of individual larger research projects. So of course, data stewards in these types of approaches typically only do this role part-time or voluntarily, as in they just add it to their existing activities. And typically, they are still coordinated by the central open science or research data management teams. So I've added a few examples from the University of Oslo and the Basel University in Switzerland, who kind of go in this more community-based direction. And of course, the benefit of applying such an approach can be that you have a lot of really niche domain-specific expertise because you have so many people involved. But the challenge can, of course, be the coordination and working towards a common goal. You really need to do a lot in terms of community management to get people involved and convince them to work towards a common goal. So let's now move to the data stewardship program we have implemented at the University of Vienna. You all see the beautiful stock image. It's not totally random. This is very much the idea of bridging and connecting researchers to the available infrastructure. So our data stewardship program is built from kind of two major parts. First one being the data steward network. So we decided to implement this model of data stewardship as part of our larger research data management team. So we have one coordinator, that's my role within the university library. And then we have data stewards embedded at the faculty level. And something that's perhaps a bit unusual for a data stewardship program, we also decided to help our data stewards become well educated in research data management and open science through our formal further education program called the Data Steward Certificate course. So for our Data Steward network, we are currently running the Sorry, somebody was calling me. So for our data steward network, we are currently running the pilot, which started last year and goes all the way to 2025. And the data steward coordinator at the library is that's my task to coordinate this whole program. And here you see on the slide the 4 data stewards that we have at the faculties and 1 research center. So the main responsibilities of our data stewards are to, again, provide support and consult our researchers with their data management needs, to provide training, most importantly for our PhD students. They also do needs assessments, and they help researchers develop these more sustainable workflows. So the data steward certificate course is, as I mentioned, the second part of our data stewardship program. And while we were developing this course, we were kind of thinking about 3 guiding principles for the development, starting with, of course, the competence acquisition. So we wanted our future emerging data stewards to learn from experts, from research, but also from research data management, from Austria and also other countries. But because this is a professional further development course, we really wanted to leverage the expertise and experience of our participants. So we wanted to find ways to support peer-to-peer learning in order to build a data steward community within Austria, but also for our data stewards to be part of the international data steward community. So let's go over some of the basics of the course. As I mentioned, this is a part-time further education program based on a course called Data Librarian, which the library used to offer several years ago. We also utilized the results of the Fair Data Austria project and similar training courses, specifically these 2 from Germany. So once you finish, you receive a certificate from the University of Vienna, and the course is offered in English and open internationally. It takes 2 semesters and amounts to 15 ECTS credit points. And in terms of target groups, we try to be as open as possible, no pun intended. So we're both open to both active researchers and people who are currently working in a research support role. And the costs amount to 2,950 euros currently. So the goal for this whole program is very much to both prepare new hires for this challenging role of data stewards, but to also have the ability for institutions to upskill their existing staff. So if they're not able or willing to hire new people as data stewards, they can choose somebody from their existing staff and send them to this course and then assign them this new role. This is what the course looks like in terms of modules. We have 5 modules overall, starting with the first one in Vienna. It's the only one that takes place on site, and it introduces the topics of research data management and open science. The second module and all the way through the 5th then take place online. So the second module covers the basics of IT and data science. And as you can see in the image on the right-hand side, this is very much the basis of the course. And we then build on this introduction in the 3rd module, which is called Fair Data in the Research Data Lifecycle, where we cover a lot of the topics that we introduced in the first 2 modules in more detail. So we look at things like metadata, documentation for research data, or repositories. And then in the 4th module, we start translating what we have learned in the first 3 modules into the typical tasks of data stewards that I mentioned before. So the participants learn things such as how to design a training course on research data management. And in the 5th module, the students choose to do either an individual or a group project, something of their choosing. It could be anything such as, for example, designing a training course, but it could be also something like designing a board game. So let me just briefly tell you about the first round of the course. We just finished this September. The participants just received their certificates a couple of weeks ago, and we had 25 participants from 10 countries, and pretty much a wide array of research disciplines, from the arts and humanities all the way to computer science. And we were very fortunate to receive overall really positive feedback that we could also learn from for the next round of the course, which started yesterday, actually, and it's currently running. For this week, we're running the first module. And this time around, we have 26 participants from 12 countries, including 2 colleagues from the Czech Republic, which I'm very happy about. And we are currently also exploring some possibilities for international collaboration and maybe co-hosting the course with other national programs in other countries, specifically Finland, Latvia, and Slovenia. So if you're interested in the course, if you just want to know what's happening with that, you can sign up for our newsletter. You can use the QR code or the link in the slides later. We are currently planning to start the third round of the course in October 2024. And before I finish for today, I wanted to leave you with this thought, something that we strongly believe at the University of Vienna, and that is that we cannot foster open science without good research data management, meaning you need research data management skills first, and you need these responsible practices in terms of your research data first, and then you can build on that towards other aspects of open science. But I'm not going to just leave it at that, on that really abstract note. I have a few thoughts, a few ideas of what we feel is really helpful, what has helped us developing these support services. So first of all, of course, it stands to reason. It makes sense to assess the needs of the communities that you serve. And for that, you don't need to just go out there and start your own investigations and do your own research. It really makes sense that we all practice what we preach and we look at existing data first. So that could be, your university annual surveys or your library surveys. Maybe there have been some other studies conducted within your institutional context that have, data and that provide information that could be helpful to you. But of course, you can also conduct your own investigations. This could be anything and could be more of a formal needs assessment, such as a survey or conducting interviews or focus groups. But you could also just, organize a workshop where you invite some of your target audiences and have them tell you what they want and what they need. It's also really helpful when you're developing policies for open science or research data management to link them with institutional commitment. So you don't only mandate researchers to do something, but you really make sure that the university or the research institution you're working at actually puts it in writing in the policy that they will invest in this area and that they will provide the support, because that's really, really important, and that's something you can always build on later on. It also makes sense to leverage existing expertise, which means that even when you're not able to just hire a bunch of new data stewards for your institution, you can have a look at the experts that are already working there, and you can try to create a competence network and try to just bundle what you already have and connect the people that are already within your institution. And of course, it makes sense to train your staff or train yourselves. So there's so many, free training courses available online. I know that you've been doing a great job in the Czech Republic, also creating a lot of training and offering a lot of training for your community. So that's, of course, something that's really helpful. And something that's helped me personally is to take part in an Erasmus exchange program. I went to Belgium, to the University of Ghent, that has a really wonderful, successful data stewardship program. And I went there for a week to learn from them and to see what, how I could get inspired from the work that they've been doing and what I could bring home back home with me. So that's also something that you could look into. And then, of course, the most important thing, and the one that usually doesn't cost a whole lot, is to just get involved in the various international initiatives. And I know there are so many colleagues from the Czech Republic who are already, active members of many of these initiatives, many of these communities. But if you aren't, do look at what's out there, in terms of the Research Data Alliance or Open Air, and of course also the developments within the EOSC. You can also look at the things happening in terms of more domain-specific focus, like in terms of the digital humanities or life sciences and in Elixir. So that's the last thought I'm going to leave you with. Thank you so much for listening. I'm really excited to talk to you, to find out more about what's happening in my hometown, but also my home country, really. If you want to know more about the research data management support at the university, you can use the QR code here or just check out our website. And thanks again.